So, how much do we need to fund reserves this year? That's the big question. When you're working with uPlanIt, you can easily test your ideas about changes to your funding plan. See what happens when you reduce your reserve funding a little, or a lot. See what happens if you start low but make some increases over the next few years. Print out some tables to show your homeowners how you'll need future special assessments if you keep funding at current low levels. See if you can avoid a special assessment by delaying a project and increasing your budgeted funding. There's really no limit to what you can do with uPlanIt, and that's why so many people have grown to rely on it. uPlanIt allows you to clearly see which reserve funding decisions work and which don't for your association. Our uPlanIt users tell us they love using uPlanIt to explore different options because there's often more than one path forward. Follow along as I demonstrate how easy it is to use uPlanIt to test different funding plan options. All right, so we've talked about making changes to the components. Let's now move to the idea of adjusting your funding plan. What kind of changes can you make? What's going to happen here? And basically, here we work with adjusting the starting balance, maybe the interest or inflation, the funding rate, funding profile. Let's leave the components as they are, and now let's start looking at what the components have the effect of doing and what your choice of funding plan is going to do to the future of the association. All right, so let's step back into uPlanIt. David will leave the components as they are. Okay, so we've got something balanced here. And let's say that the treasurer or the budget committee says, I'm not sure we can make 4660 fly. How about 4,000? What happens if we can only schedule reserve funding of 4,000 a month? And in the past, you would always wonder and cross your fingers and think, well, that's close enough. Well, now you can just open up uPlanIt, type in 4,000, recalculate, and see what happens. And basically, you learn that that's okay. You're not going to crash and burn, but you're not going to have a net increase in reserve fund strength. 4,000 are going to keep you sustainable. David, baseline solver, find out what the minimum is?
Yes.
Okay.
So as Robert demonstrated with the full solver, that takes you with a goal to be 100% funded over 30 years.
Okay, I'm
and then
clicking that again.
Loads. Yep.
So baseline solver, you can go back and forth on these two guys.
Correct. And the baseline solver seeks to provide a financial outcome that keeps you cash positive or above zero throughout the same 30-year projection. So you're not going to necessarily crash and burn, but you're going to get very, very close.
You're going to be close enough you can smile to people as you're flying close to the ground. Okay, the situation we had was the full funding was 4660. The treasurer was trying to find out, will 4,000 work? And the answer was yes. But we learned that 3880 is going to get them right close to the ground, just about running out of money. Let's look at that 30-year summary and see how close to the ground it gets. And the answer is $4,000. So you learn how much or how little margin you have by going and looking at the actual numbers. Okay, what else do we want to do here?
We did want to show the control panel to show the different effects of the starting balance, interest, and inflation.
Okay,
so
cool.
Start with the starting balance.
All right, here the starting balance right now is 111,256. What do you like?
Let's say there's a fun accounting error, an oopsie, so to speak, and you realize later in the year that you're really only going to have 91,256. So you're about $20,000 short of what you thought and what was included in the reserve study.
Okay, so I've typed in 91,256 here. I'm going to save, go over to this page, and I bet if we look at the details, we're going to see that we crash and burn. And indeed, we go about $20,000 negative. No surprise. Okay, so let's boost this up. To me, this is a failed funding plan. It doesn't provide for the needs of the association. So, David, what do you want us to demonstrate here?
Well, we can take an opportunity to solve two things for relation of the associations that come in and they get a reserve study and they can't make the immediate jump to say 4,000 a month, but they think they could handle 750 first year.
Okay, I'll type that in, 2750. Let's see what happens.
So they want to see what that means. Obviously, from what we looked at previously, that's not going to be enough.
Crash and burn. Yeah, we learned they needed 3880 or something like that.
Right. And that is where the first increase and second increase percentages you see on your screen come into play. Now we're going to say maybe we can jump up 10% a year after that, and we think that's reasonable for the first 4 years, and you want to see if that works. And then we would follow that up with 3% increases thereafter.
Okay. So what David's talking about, you can see here, we have a smooth set of annual increases in the funding plan. You probably couldn't tell, but it was 3%, and then it flattened a little bit down to 2%. And right now we're going to test and see if we can start at $27.50, which is only $38.73 per unit per month, and then jump that up by 10% a year. So about $4 per month per unit. It seems pretty reasonable. So let's try this. So we've got 10% increases for 4 years and then 3% increases thereafter. Recalculate, and that's better. We still crash and burn later on. You see the higher 10% increases here. David, let's go a little more. What do you say? 5 or 6 years?
Apologize, I was muted. Yep, 6 sounds great.
Okay, let's try that. I didn't know if there was a storm in your area and we lost you. Still not cutting it. Let's go 8. And I guess what you're seeing here is that you can learn. It's not a magic solution. You get to craft a solution for your association. And I'm not wringing my hands here. Again, we're talking about 10% increases per year to the reserve funding, which is about $4 per year monthly increases. Your homeowners really should be able to tolerate a $4 per month increase from this year to the next year to the next. Right now, we've got that going for 8 years, and now we have a reasonable plan. Now, another thing that I see that works is that we have very few reserve expenses in the first 5 years. And so we do have time to build this up, to ramp up our funding to where it's needed to be able to shoulder all these bigger expense years downstream. Dave, do you want to make this even worse for this association?
Sure.
It's just a demonstration. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take this. Let's say that wasn't a, $20,000 accounting mistake. Let's say it was a big mistake. Let's take it down another $50,000. So we're starting with only $41,000. I'm now starting to brace myself. Let's go to the recommendations page, and yeah, that's a tougher situation. So 41,000 starting point, and we get here, and let's make it a little bit worse. I want to show a special assessment, okay?
Let's go ahead and increase inflation to account for potentially causing. If you have looked in recent times, you'll know that costs have been going up pretty highly or substantially pretty quickly. And so maybe you want to test a different inflation rate, which is really not general inflation, but the inflation of costs within your components. So let's say we assume that costs are going to go up by 4% per year instead of 3% per year.
Okay, not a big number change, but everyone brace yourself as we now go to the recommendations tab and see that this is pretty much going to kill this analysis, because everything getting bigger at 4% a year is a lot more than just 3% a year. So to get a baseline solution for this, actually, I probably shouldn't have done that because we're apples and oranges. Let me bring this back to 2750. what were we? 2750 for, and then
10%.
10% a year for 8 years.
Mm-hmm. And then 3 for 30.
3% for 30. Okay. And let's bring it back, recalculate, and let's design a solution. Okay. I think the solution is going to be in more years of 10% increases.
Well, we can also highlight the special assessment tools that we have in there. We can go see what the shortfall may be and use higher increases and maybe a special assessment to account for that shortfall.
Which is a great example, because as my mom would say, there's usually more than one way to skin a cat. And so let's try a few more years of that 10% annual increase. Let's go up to 12. And there we go. Now we have a reasonable solution. Or could take this back to 8 years, and we could try that missing $50,000. Or let's, better yet, a 2-year special assessment of $25,000 a year. How's that?
Sounds like a plan.
Recalculate. That doesn't work. Add another year special of $25,000. Still not enough.
I think this does highlight the flexibility of the tool, and ultimately you have the capability to build a financial plan that suits your association, and there's many ways to go about that, whether it be through funding increases, special assessments. Ultimately, this is a tool to be used by the decision makers, not the mandate of what has to take place. And ultimately, we want to provide information to our clients and the capability for them to explore all the different possibilities.
Okay. I'm rebuilding this case. And it looks like we've just about brought it back. Tables and charts. Let's look at the 30-year balance. And we are indeed cash positive. So that's a baseline analysis. So one thing that we're trying to show here is this is a tool that you can make these changes. You can try this, you can try that. There's better and worse. And another thing to point out would be you might want to print this page and say, this is case 1, and then try something else and say, this is case 2, because you only have, this is only one sandbox. You don't have the ability to save multiple different cases. So if you are going to present option 1, option 2, option 3 at a board meeting, you may want to have these cases printed out so you can explain them and recreate them for the everyone that is listening to you. Fair enough?
Yep. And similar to that, we mentioned it earlier on the components tab, and really on each tab, you are able to print out or export file types that will save your place. So in this example with the asphalt changes and whatnot that we did, if you export to Excel, that button right there, it will include all of the notes you've made and changes you've made. So that is a very easy, straightforward way to save your place or to save what changes you might want to work with before you reset to the original data for someone else to work with or to test a different plan. So that route is there, but our tool does only conduct one analysis at a time.
Yeah. And I'm smiling here because if you have done all this work and then some well-intended but not careful person comes in here and clicks reset and destroys all your work, that can be a real sad day unless you have exported this. And there it is, a funding plan inventory. That's going to be in a slightly different format, but at least you can copy and paste that into your importer file. And within, 1 minute, you can have your components all back. So just another safety for you. And I think that's what we tried to accomplish here. Any more to show?
I think we're good for now. No, we want to save a little bit of time for the Q&A. So I think we can move to the summary and
Let's do that.
Go towards the letting our audience direct us on what they'd like.
Fantastic. Okay. Back to the PowerPoint. So that's working with the financial plan, the funding plan. At Association Reserves, we make the present less stressful and the future more secure. If you want to join us in this mission, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see us address in a future video. Let's plan for your best future.